WFLA Now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
So many times in our lives, we get stuck with the unserving patterns from the past. So today we're talking to a leading expert when it comes to healing trauma and finding a journey to self-love, Dr. Lida Fatemi, who is out with her new book, Conscious Physician Method, Conscious Life Practices, and Psilocybin. It is such a pleasure to have you as the newest member of the Bloom Health Club.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's truly a privilege to be here.
So, Dr. Fatemi, I want to talk all about your book, but I love your personal journey, the story that brought you to become the woman who you are today. I know you were a top physician, you're an educator, you're an award-winning author, you have so many accolades, but your journey started with a lot of trauma.
With a lot of trauma that I've now noticed later in life. I grew up in a very loving family, very safe and secure family. But I'm going to share this story with you, Gail, about a young pregnant female who was living in war. Imagine 7 months pregnant. It's 3:30 in the morning and the city alarms go off. And her husband grab their 3-year-old daughter from her bedroom as she's sleeping and run down the stairs 3 flights into the garage underneath their apartment complex to seek safety. And as the bombs drop, this woman feels the baby inside of her just shake with every drop. And this goes on and on for 8 years. And this baby girl is born into this environment. Though the family is very loving and secure, the general population is in panic all the time, of course. And at the same time, they're living under this very horrible terrorist dictatorship regime, using religion as a way to control the masses and oppress females especially, and oppress people's voice so that they have control. And so this little girl grows up in this environment, learns to silence herself, because if she speaks up, something can happen to her family or to herself. People get imprisoned, people get kidnapped, people get killed, people get whipped, at a whim. And it's very traumatic to go through all of this. She learns that if she pleases everyone else, she's safe. So creates those survival strategies. And that little girl was me. And at age 14, we moved to America, where there was safety, where there was freedom, where there is voice, where you can speak up. And even though immigration was very difficult and its own trauma, it was the place that we could blossom in a way that we wanted to. What a privilege to truly be here. And then years later, I became a physician. My grandfather was a physician in Iran for over 40 years. And he was beautiful with his patients. He was humane. He had this sacred relationship with his patients. And, me being in the medical model in America, it also opened my eyes to how much we push prescription medications on patients, even if harmful. And that is another reason that I created this new path that I also educate other physicians on to become certified in, to bring to their patients.
And I do want to take a moment to bring in Brody Waddell. I know he worked closely with you on an article. He is our lead producer and digital reporter for Bloom Tampa Bay. I want to talk about how psilocybin comes into all of this. And I know that Brody's got a lot of questions too, but it's important to say that after everything you went through with your childhood, coming to America, immersing yourself in this lifestyle, you were working at the hospital, you were answering all these demands, you continued to be this people pleaser, professional pleaser, all the things, until it eventually broke you.
Absolutely. And I broke myself. I chose that path at the same time, maybe subconsciously, because that was my pattern, those self-sabotage patterns that we carry with ourselves as if we don't deserve better. And so over and over, I kept going towards the dark side. And I watched this happen as I would walk towards my office in the hospital, admitting I don't know how many patients. The walls would start coming, down on me. And it was dark. It was a very dark space. And there were mornings I was okay not waking up. And it was truly my daughter and my family who were my thread to life, into wanting a better life, to live a life that's worth living, that I want to be happy and joyful in. But man, was it difficult. It was very painful every step of the way, as if I was paralyzed for years and now I was just relearning how to walk again.
At what age did that happen? Because I think so many of us get stuck in a destructive pattern. We don't know any way out. We have mouths to feed. We have people that depend on us. So we stay stuck because we don't know where else to go.
Yeah, I was in my 30s. I was in my 30s, early 30s. And, along the same, absolutely. And we put everybody else ahead of our own needs. We are nurturers as females. It's just what we do. And as professionals, then we have jobs to please and make sure everything goes well. And my time comes last, right? And so to reverse that script and say, no, my conscious life practices come first. These are methods of self-care. These are the methods of self-love. And then you add psilocybin to that as an ally, an ancient teacher telling us about, hey, let's unveil the subconscious and all the patterns that we've carried with ourselves. Now I can see, me carrying all of this on my shoulders, I don't have to. I can choose differently. I can't say things in a different way. That's not offensive to people, but I can set boundaries that also serve me and in turn serve everyone else.
All right, so let's talk about your new book that's out, The Conscious Physician Method, Conscious Life Practices, and psilocybin. Psilocybin for a long time was getting a lot of buzz as a healing modality to help people, whether it's into life, cancer patients. I mean, the list goes on and on for PTSD and our service members. This is something a topic that you are a lead educator in. Tell me where things stand now.
It's very promising. We're still getting a ton of funding into psilocybin research. There is a ton of on-the-ground grassroots advocacy that's happening. In fact, Louisiana law enforcement is considering using the conscious physician method in their law enforcement training for their officers as they're going through training, and then bringing it to their population. So that tells me we are in a very, very cool spot, that we are all looking for a better way of life. And these conscious life practices, they bring balance to us and tell us that we matter. And then, psilocybin is truly a beautiful conscious healing tool if used properly, but we also have to be very safe with how we use it in the doses and who guides you. You need an expert, trusted guide to take you through in how and how much of it to use, and in what setting to use it, and with what intentions. And so I bring all of that in the book. In part 6 and on, it's all about psilocybin research, science behind it. I also integrated, there isn't any other book that I could find that has all this information in it. So I needed to bring it in, really tapping into my own purpose, having had the knowledge of what my family had gone through, bringing us to this country. And now I had to really step in and be like, I'm putting my big girl pants on, and we got to talk about this for our community.
For those who don't know, what exactly is psilocybin?
Yes, thank you for asking. Psilocybin is the psychoactive compound in over 200 different species of mushrooms. Now, it is when someone ingests psilocybin, it converts into the active form called psilocin. Again, that's also in the book if you want to review that. And psilocin interacts with serotonin receptors, particular subtypes of serotonin receptors, but we don't need to get too technical here. Serotonin is the happy molecule. And so as you can imagine, it modulates the happy molecule. And by doing so, at the brain level, what we also see on functional MRIs, where we can see the activity of the brain, is with higher doses of psilocybin, there's this opening in the brain of all the different parts of the brain connecting to each other, and neuroplasticity happening, meaning new neurons can actually form, which is fantastic and fascinating. Because, when I went to Emory and I was studying neuroscience there, I have a degree in neuroscience and behavioral biology from them. We believed that by age 25, your brain has grown all the way it can. And at 25 and after, you start atrophying. How sad is that?
Sad.
But now we know it's not true with proper use of these medicines and different psychedelics also. But specifically psilocybin is what we're looking for, and different psychedelics at different doses. We're also seeing this effect of neuroplasticity. And it has incredible implications in patients with TBIs who come, combat veterans, PTSD, or people who are at the verge of dementia. How can we help them? Does it have implications in autism? Does it have implications in Parkinson's disease? It's really limitless what we're looking at right now. And it's so exciting as a physician to be able to tap into this and see, for myself, with my clients, to see what we can achieve.
So talk to me about what you're seeing. Can you kind of walk me through the typical psilocybin session? How long does it last? How often do you readdress this? Who's around you when you're in this state?
Yeah. So there's two different paths. What you're mentioning is the macro dose, the large dose intake of psilocybin. In that regard, I always do my retreats in legal countries. Every state.
So where would that be?
Mexico, Costa Rica, a lot of the South American countries, Brazil, they don't even have any legality around plant medicine. It's a plant. They're like, how can you make a plant illegal? That's absurd. That's something we've done in America since the 1970s. And so yes, I'll take a group of, in August, I'm taking a group of physicians and professional moms to Mexico. We're going to have a 7-day retreat where we do coaching beforehand. So you have to have a container. It's not just like, oh, I take the medicine, I'm cured. No. There's work to be done. So if you're going to do it right, you're going to do pre-work. So I do individual coaching, then we do group coaching. So people get to know each other. Then we go into retreat for 7 days. We use microdosing so that people start building a relationship with the medicine, with the plants, with the planet, with themselves. And then we do a macrodose session. And I'm the retreat leader. I also have an indigenous woman who's young and just fantastic. She's been from the lineage where psilocybin got introduced into the Western world through Maria Sabina. And in Oaxaca, that, she's got an apprenticeship for the past decade doing this work. So she's, her and I are going to do this in conjunction. And we have sitters, and, the people who are facilitating, you have to be at your purest self because you got people there who are going through their trauma, who are seeing things, who are dealing with things that they're trying to get rid of. And we sit with them. I do body work with them. We do meditation. We do breath work before, during, and after. And the guidance through the difficult parts of the journey are essentially important. And also the number of people you take. I only take 8 women with me because, there's I have to be able to take care of every single one of them. So there's a ton of personalized work. And then after the ceremony, there's going to be a cacao ceremony. We have a vision walk in nature. It's on a nature reserve. We're going to have hot springs. All of these are modalities of healing, of us getting into our bodies. In trauma, what we see is that we dissociate from our physical world, from our physical bodies, and people don't even feel that they have a body. They feel their head, but not the rest of the body. And so bringing these women back, into their bodies and connecting again. And then we have integration sessions afterwards while we are in Mexico. And then after that, when we get back, we're going to have more integration sessions that I run myself. So that is a large macrodose ceremony. And, there's some overview of macrodosing in this book. I don't go into particular detail about it. That's a whole different book of its own. Every individual journey is different with certain themes that do come up. But you need an experienced guide who knows what they're doing. And you got to feel their heart. You got to feel your intuition. And are you in harmony with this person? And if you're not, wait for it. Now, with microdosing, it's a whole different thing. Because microdosing, that can be done anywhere in the world as long as you have Zoom. And I do this with people who are, and I educate people who are in Oregon, who are in different parts of Canada, who are, it's legal for them to use, so I educate them. We go through the entire program together. There have been administrative leadership physicians who've been on 10 years of Adderall and propranolol and this and that. And people are like twitching out and you're like, oh my gosh, how are you functioning? And they know they're not functioning well. And these are very high achieving individuals who just have not had guidance in how do I deal with emotions? How do I deal with life? And once we go through the program, halfway through, this individual started taking herself off medications, and she was a physician. But by her own accord, she's like, I don't need these anymore. And so it's life-changing, truly life-changing. She started feeling again, feeling life, feeling being with her husband and, her mom who had just died and dealing with that grief. And then I have people who are professionals at the end of life, and they have that anxiety and, they have children. And they don't want to live with that anxiety. They have only a numbered few days. How do I deal with that? And so microdosing is a wonderful adjunct to all the other things that they're doing already. There are people who are on chemotherapy still. But with microdosing, they're able to get through the anxiety of chemotherapy and the side effects of it. And in fact, some of them end up responding better to chemotherapy because now anxiety is gone. Now the cortisol levels are doing okay. They're not super high all the time, where that is causing disease also. I have people who change jobs, who change, homes, who are like, oh, this, my partner who I have had questions about this relationship for so long, I should have listened to myself. And they finally do.
Is this something, Brody, that you've ever thought about or researched? I know you do a lot in your side.
Yeah, a little bit for sure. This is something I've talked about. It's very interesting. How does the psilocybin mushrooms compare to the other psychedelics for clinical use, do you think? Because I know they're doing a lot with ketamine now, which obviously is a pretty strong one. There's been so much, the most research ever has been on LSD for sort of things like that. Where is this at?
Yeah, great questions. Psilocybin, what I like about it is that it is non-addictive at all. We've done a ton of studies, it just does not cause addiction. Ketamine, on the other hand, does. I'm certified in ketamine therapy. I'm not interested in using it in my clients at all. Yeah. I'm like, if it has any potential, I'm not there.
Any potential for addiction.
For addiction, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So ketamine I don't use. I'm certified in it, don't use it. MDMA I'm certified in. You can use it. MDMA is actually a beautiful molecule to be used in PTSD specifically. What it does is that as you are utilizing the medicine, it lasts about 5 hours, you don't feel any fear anymore. And then all of a sudden, everything else is possible. So if you have couples in couple therapy where they've been afraid of speaking to each other about particular topics, there's no fear. So they're just talking. They're just talking. They're like, oh, I wish you did this more. I wish I did this more. I wish I would take care of you like this. And there's just love. It's the love molecule. So oxytocin is produced with MDMA, and it's just beautiful. And it's one of the most safe psychedelics as well. With MDMA, even at high doses, you don't have to have a guide in person, is what we're seeing. Now, the MAPS protocol says you have to have 2 guides in person by the bedside, which makes it cost prohibitive for most people, most institutions. But MAPS really paved the road for psychedelic research. So thank you so much, Rick Doblin. Incredible human to be doing this work, and raised millions of dollars to do this at the FDA level, and showed efficacy in PTSD of 70% remission of veterans, which is unreal. These people now have a life, that they can live, and that it's worth living. It's true service to humanity. So MDMA is a beautiful molecule as well. Now, you asked about LSD. LSD has been studied extensively at the end of life by Dr. Stan Grof, who I believe he is Eastern European. I'm forgetting, is it Hungary? Maybe it is Hungary. And he and his wife, they would administer, he's a psychiatrist. He's still alive. He's 98 years old. And he's very active in the psychedelic world. And he wrote the books, The Way of the Psychonaut. And he goes into detail work about not just end of life, but also beginning of life, the prenatal trauma that babies have. And also birth trauma itself is its own thing that we don't talk about in psychiatry. But he's been talking about it. He published his book, I think, in 2018. And it's just fascinating. So yes, he was really the main person who brought a ton of science and understanding into LSD specifically. LSD is also a beautiful molecule, but again, you have to use it with discretion, with guidance. I know people who use psychedelics and come out more traumatized than they went into.
Yeah, or going bad, they call it too. There's some people that will take them and they just scrambled. It's hard to tell. How do you know if that's going to happen to somebody?
Yes.
We all have those friends where it's like, I do not think that you should ever do something like this.
Yeah.
And there's other ones where it's like, oh, you would love that.
Yeah. Those people need a lot of support before, during, and after. And it's unethical if anybody's doing it otherwise. If you look at tons of research that's coming out, and thousands of papers, it's got to be a container that we're holding. So there's pre-work. So they do months of heavy-duty trauma psychotherapy beforehand. So you're examining your trauma from all these different perspectives. And that's what I bring in with the conscious life practices. You're examining yourself from all these different angles of breathing, of meditation, of grounding. How do I do all these things? And then if you have any resistance to doing this work, then what's going on there? And then people also need deeper work with trauma. So having a trauma therapist alongside, or a coach or a physician who is an expert. Most physicians are not, unfortunately. I'm trying to bring our profession up to speed with all of this because I think we have so much potential here. And that individual needs a ton more work and a ton more integration. And that individual needs somebody to be with them, holding them as they're going through a psychedelic experience. Otherwise, they can see their trauma and they don't know what to do with it, and they will panic. And if you don't have that container that is tight, then you have a 10% chance of adverse outcomes, and that adverse outcome could be detrimental to their life and the rest of their family. And I've seen it happen. So we gotta be very careful how we approach all of this.
Right.
So let's circle back to psilocybin, something that you do and that you're taking people on retreats to. When you describe it, it sounds like quite the commitment. You're taking a week off with your family. There's work to be done beforehand. There's work to be done afterwards. But what's the motivation for people to do this? Like, what's the game changer that someone's like, you know what? I'm going to carve this out and I'm going to go do this.
They're at that point in life, just like I was in the darkness, and I was okay not waking up the next morning. And this went on for some time, and I'm like, this is not okay. I couldn't engage with my child. I knew I had to get out, and I'm young, and I'm like, I have a whole life ahead of me. Is this it? And so I have a lot of people in that space of, I can't anymore, and I need something better. Or I have people who are very successful entrepreneurs, and they don't want to continue making decisions that are not making a lot of sense or serving them and their community anymore. They want to change their ways, and they're like, something is holding me back. I got blockages, and I'm ready to see with clarity the next steps without being weighed down.
And is that what people walk away from? I mean, do you see them?
Absolutely.
The life-changing moments?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Does it work for everyone?
I have a very strict protocol that I use for people so I select people, and if I see that they are not interested in doing the work, I say no. There are people who I refund every single penny back to because they're not doing the work, and we have a little test run to see, hey, are you really committed, or are you just trying to escape? Or are you just, woohoo, I'm using psilocybin.
Or like, this is some Gwyneth Paltrow Goop Lab thing. I want to be cool and go try psilocybin.
We don't do that. And so if I feel any of that, then we have a talk, and everyone who comes through my program has to be very committed, and I watch them be committed. And some of them are overly committed. I'm like, okay, let's back off a little bit on the commitment. You can also do this with ease and joy. And it doesn't have to be challenging every step of the way. It can be joyful. But, with psilocybin, macrodosing, you got to have, and LSD as well, you have to have a guide present during ceremony. Always have somebody present. People, yes, you will hear in the community that people are doing this on their own too, but then you're risking things. Yeah.
Well, it's better with friends anyway. Right?
Yes.
So you seem to. So are you against macro dosing then? Isn't there something to be said to just be completely overwhelmed and then just like go through that and do all the work? Like,
I'm all about it. It can be a tough journey, so just be prepared for it. I think my personal journey with macrodose has been what's changed my life.
Right.
And that's seeing these patterns of the past of fear, how I was run by fear, by pleasing others, by pleasing systems, and then separating out those fears out of yourself. And, it's hard to explain these states in words because it's such a deep experience. But observing those fears out here, and it's no longer in you, and you realize it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion somebody else created to control me. Right. And then you gain your own power. Then you step into your own power. And that's when it was that that was really one of the most important points in my journey to creating the conscious physician method. It was that moment of, whoa. And that was with LSD for me. Exactly. But everyone has their own medicine, There's a lot of ayahuasca retreats happening.
Yeah, that seems to be the in vogue thing. So it's interesting that you're talking about mushrooms.
Yeah. Each medicine has its own place and time in your journey. I don't have experience with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a very tradition-based medicine that if you're going to do it right. Go to the jungle of Peru or go to the jungle Amazon in Brazil or Peru. Those are the two, tribes, the Shipibo tribe from the Peruvian side and Amazon. I forget their name. But that's where you want to be with the medicine and connecting. But, again, every medicine has its own space. And having experienced most of them, they all helped me in different ways. MDMA, love, in the most incredible rush of love that you can feel for yourself and for humanity and for those around you. Warmth and humility. And, psilocybin too brings this connectedness, this nature consciousness that we're all connected and there's a reason. And there's a reason. And there's, you go out and look at the mountains and look at the birds front and you're like, you're here for a reason too. Yeah. This is so cool. And you feel that deep experiential connection, not just saying it, not just reading it, but feeling it.
Who would you say your book is for?
I wrote it with my physician mamas in mind and heart because of my own lived experience. And so there's a ton of scientific evidence here and lived experience here and how-tos to give all of this legs. How do I do this in life? Because, as I was going through my own journey, people would be like, oh, have more gratitude or have this and or get over it quickly or let go. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? How do I do that? And so I kept reading, I kept researching, I kept doing, I kept experimenting. And experimentation is really the key to all of exploration. And so, I wrote it because as professional moms, we go through so much and we have everybody else, in front of us before ourselves, and our community and the collective work that we do is very important for women. And in fact, the most initial psychedelic rites that happened were held by women of high stature in ancient Greece, the Eleusinian mystery rites. I don't know if you know about it, Brody, but look into it. Eleusinian mysteries, Persephone and Demeter, and it is women who brought healing to their community. And then religion came and wiped out all of the evidence. Not all of it, because we're still looking at archaeology and we're seeing this. And the Immortality Key by Ryan Morescu is the book to read on that. It's fantastic and fascinating. He has never used psychedelics himself, but he goes and looks at archaeological evidence to prove all of this, and it's fascinating. So, women, we forgot our power, and we are here to heal the collective, and that's my work. And reminding other women to do the same is really what this is about. And that first of all, we got to love ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves, number one. If we don't, we cannot give. We cannot stand in our own power. We're just giving it away.
Dr. Fatemi, this has been a great conversation. Did you have any follow-up questions before we wrap up?
Not that we have any time for, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fatemi. It's been great. And congratulations on the new book, The Conscious Physician Method, Conscious Life Practices, and Psilocybin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Until next time.
Till next time.